This week, Germany is kicked out of the World Cup at the earliest point since 1938. All these years later, and Germany still can't handle Russian conditions. Pauline Hanson denies flip-flopping on the government's tax cut plans.
I haven't flip-flopped. I said no originally, then I said yes, then I have said no, and I've stuck to it.
Sorry, that's Pauline Hanson defines flip-flopping on the government's tax cut plans. And finally, Sarah Huckabee Sanders is kicked out of a restaurant in Virginia. At long last, America is a country where people are judged not by the colour of their skin, but the content of their character. This is The Leak. Thank you. Welcome to The Leak. I'm Pat McCaffrie. Big news this week with the ongoing immigration debate in America, where children are being separated from their parents at the US border, and people are understandably outraged that yet again, America has taken a classic Australian idea but remade it so much worse. Not the first time this has happened. Then Melania Trump waded into the debate like an egret into a custard calzone when she was photographed wearing a jacket with the slogan, "I really don't care, do you?" Melania's spokesperson, Stephanie Grisham, took to Twitter to say, "It's just a jacket. There's no hidden message." 2 points. 2 points, Stephanie. First, I don't think anyone's suggesting the problem with the message is that it's hidden. No one's saying, I think I agree, but I also don't think I get it. You know, Melania's jacket isn't Westworld, who am I, right? I think people's problem is the message. But secondly, maybe we should give Melania the benefit of the doubt. I mean, it is so easy to be cynical these days. I mean, she was probably just getting the words wrong. You know, maybe she meant to say, "I should care, but I don't," or "I really miss Cher," or "My husband violated the UN Charter of Human Rights. What did yours do this morning?" Also this week, the General Data Protection Regulation came into force, which places restrictions on companies that collect personal data in the EU, which meant EU companies had to email all of their customers to update their privacy policies. And starting an email with concerns about online privacy means you can basically tell a human anything. It is almost impossible for us to read past the words privacy policy, which might actually mean that's the best way to break bad news to a relative. "Dear Mum, I've updated our privacy policy. Also, your birthday present is not in the mail because I forgot and hadn't bought it when you rang me." And Australia has been kicked out of the World Cup by Peru, which is not particularly surprising. I mean, in South America, soccer is essentially a religion, while in Australia, I suppose soccer is also essentially a religion, but only in that very few Australians actually care about it. And lastly, in a Senate debate about women's safety, Liberal Democratic Senator David Leyonhjelm told Green Senator Sarah Hanson-Young that if she really hates men so much, she should stop shagging men. And to be fair, you can understand that Senator Leyonhjelm wants to live in a world that's become so politicised that anyone expressing concerns about women's safety can't have sex with men. Because reducing the number of women who could potentially fuck him reduces the number of women who are actually saying no. But our top story tonight involves Environment Minister Josh Frydenberg, who last Thursday spoke out about the plight of Abbott's booby. It's a critically endangered species which breeds primarily on Christmas Island and... Please. Thank you. It's a critically endangered species that seems to stand a much better chance of survival than that other endangered Australian native, women in the Liberal Party. Because just 1 in 5 Liberal politicians are women, or, to be needlessly and grossly scientific, female. Unlike in the ALP, where after implementing quotas in 1994, 48% of federal Labor MPs are now women, although they still don't actually know who Bill Shorten is. Though the ALP still has a long way to go. While they used Jed Carney's election to boast about women in Parliament, we shouldn't forget that they did still pre-select David, "I forgot to declare a $2 million investment property, left confidential briefing notes in a news studio and was a dual citizen Feeney before her." But despite this, the Liberals seem determined to avoid implementing any kind of quota, preferring to talk instead about setting a target. And their coalition partner, the Nationals, also have a target, although being a rural party, theirs is naturally a target country. But the Liberals' main argument for choosing a target over a quota is that there is no systemic bias against women and that the Liberals select all their candidates on merit. To which I would say, Have you seen the men in the Liberal Party, though? Like, there's Eric, abortion causes breast cancer abets, Kevin, I'm hard for white refugees Andrews, and Ian, my last name is how all my sexual partners describe me good enough. Oh, and there was that time it took 3 of you to work out what a boom mic was. Honestly, the men in the Liberal Party is a conga line of cocks you wouldn't suck even if you thought it'd cure your cancer. You get the impression the current Liberal Party isn't following in the footsteps of Sir Robert Menzies so much as they are following in the footsteps of those guys that stand outside the family court yelling, "They made Aragorn's dick too small, probably, and you can't spell feminism without menism anyway." Honestly, the current cabinet is only a few people away from being able to sell photos of their meetings to Shutterstock to add to their collection of country music fans. Hello, young Liberals. And this aversion to quotas becomes even harder to understand when you consider how embedded quotas already are in our political system. For example, look at the Senate, and then immediately look away from the Senate because Pauline Hanson is probably saying something about Vietnam veterans not deserving a parade because she thinks they're all actually Vietnamese, but then look back at the Senate because you'll notice that every state has 12 senators and the territories have 2 because no one wants to force another 10 people to live in Canberra. But the principle is that a quota for each state ensures that the country isn't just run by the state with the most people, because the only people who benefit if Australia was run by New South Wales are rugby league fans and early investors in Bondi Burger. But no one complains, that doesn't need to exist. No one complains that Eric Abetz is only a senator because of pro-Tasmanian quotas for the Senate, mainly because the concept of equal representation across the Federation is the only redeeming feature Eric has. Or, if you wanted to get angrier, look at the Coalition Cabinet, which, as Nationals MP John Williams helpfully explained late last year, has a, quote, quota of 5 Nationals MPs. So quotas for women? Nah. But quotas for good old country boys? Well, that's just good old-fashioned agrarian socialism. It's the Australian way. But then, even if you accept that quotas are a part of our system and that they get women into Parliament, Liberals argue that the women that become politicians won't be qualified. Okay, so first, if you're suggesting there is someone less qualified to be a politician than Bob Katter, I'm actually all for electing them just to see what they would do, right? Would they stand up to give their maiden speech but then fall over and punch themselves in the dick? But secondly, a quota isn't there to turn Parliament into Real Housewives of Melbourne. It's there to overcome the unconscious bias that means the Liberal Party is all for Malcolm Turnbull, but not so keen on Lucy. And sure, we all hope we won't need quotas forever because hopefully once people experience equality, they like it. You know, like when an old man discovers Thai food at the age of 63 and sure, it's great, he's excited, but we've been eating pad Thai for ages because we're not idiots, right? But given quotas have worked for the ALP and that change doesn't seem to be coming naturally, it might be time for the Liberals to just bite the bullet and introduce one. Because otherwise, the closest thing the Liberals have to a female leader is Abbott's boobie. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Leak. Well, trains, trams, I could go on.
That won't be necessary.
Oh, it's Aurelia St Clair, everybody.
Yes, Melburnians love to catch a train, tram and so on. But not all of us are quite as fond of ticket inspectors or authorised officers as they prefer to be known.
And why do we have such a complicated relationship with Melbourne's ticket enthusiasts?
Well, between the frequent complaints of unfair and expensive fines, inappropriate use of force, intimidation and bad uniforms, it's hard to say. That's why I took to the streets to find out why authorised officers get such a bad rap.
According to official sources, authorised officers help keep public transport running smoothly and make sure everyone is paying their way. They're employed to check tickets, provide passenger information, improve safety, and help during special events and disruptions. So as I went about my unofficial duties, I was sure to maintain this helpful and positive outlook. And the people of Melbourne clearly appreciated the work I was doing, maintaining a respectful distance at all times. Sadly, not everyone loves public transport running smoothly and having passengers pay their way. Caesar is administrator of the popular Facebook group where are our mates, Melbourne's PT ticket wardens today, where Melbourneites chronicle their less pleasant experiences with the authorised officers?
I think there is a general anti-authorised officer sentiment in Melbourne. Like, a lot of people are upset that the system doesn't work, yet a lot of funds going into policing a faulty system, so a lot of people are getting caught out, and I think a lot of people think that's unfair, and I think the page is a good way of people keeping an eye on them. And then it sort of, you know, goes from being really funny to being really serious, and, like, you know, the people reporting violence. Any kind of crime surrounding ticketing, for it to escalate into violence is like archaic. It's just bullshit.
Maybe it's bullshit, but how does an expert deal with our public transport mates?
I deal with them in a certain way. I wouldn't advise that. What I generally do is I film them straight away. I start filming them and I film the whole conversation. If anyone's on the page, they've probably seen those videos. And they have no ideas of the rules. Like, for instance, that they do actually have to provide their ID. They do have to write it down. And we are allowed to film them. They're usually, like, pretty resistant to that, mostly because they don't know the rules. But the fact of the matter is if they're going to ask me for my personal information, I need to verify them. Like, anyone can put on a jacket and write authorised officer on their back and then go around. Like, who are they? So I know a lot of people get on the page and they're like, oh, you know, they're just doing their job. But it's like, yeah, their job is making other people's lives miserable. So they need to sort of wear some of that responsibility. In the whole Nuremberg sort of trials, a lot of the Nazis were like, I was just following orders. But that's not a really good enough excuse, you know, not to compare mates to Nazis, maybe a little bit.
It turns out just following orders is a very profitable venture. With minimal experience and only 6 weeks training, ticket inspectors make over $80,000 a year with almost 2 months of annual leave. With that kind of money, I could pay off all my public transport fines. In my extensive research, I discovered the one fatal flaw I'd made during my authorized adventure. I hadn't been fining people. Apparently, officers need to meet strict quotas in order to keep their jobs, which is probably why they're so aggressive with the fines. Clearly, I hadn't been proactive enough in achieving my KPIs. Listening to loud music out of a phone speaker is an offence under the Public Transport Act of 1983. Fined. Don't forget your receipts. Loitering is an offence under the Public Transport Act of 1983. Fined. 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 Fined.
I mean, that was certainly an interesting approach, Aurelia. What exactly was sort of the point you were making there?
The point? Are you aware that disrespecting an officer of the Victorian transport system is an offence under the Transport Act of 1983?
I am aware of no such offence, and also, we're not even on a tram.
Well, how did you get here?
Well, yeah, I mean, I got a tram to get here, but...
Exactly. Would you like to pay cash or card?
You still can't just do that.
Don't forget your receipt, bitch.
Aurelia St Clair, everybody. We'll be right back. Stop. Queensland, the Sunshine State, home of the Great Barrier Reef, theme parks, the Big Pineapple, this giant cow for some reason, and these natural disasters. But something new is getting our attention from the Sunshine State. George Christensen, member of the House of Representatives since 2010, representing the division of Dawson, and Queensland's George Christensen. He is a member of the Liberal National Party of Queensland and sits with the National Party in federal parliament. Christensen is making headlines after parodying a video by popular singer-songwriter Beyonce. Nope, not that one. No, not that one. Older. Older. Yep, the 2008 smash hit Single Ladies, a reference about as far behind the times as the National Party. But don't let this stunt make you think Christensen is relatable. Rather, let it show he is desperately trying to humanise a man who courts attention the same way as a man on a desert island. Light the fire and see what happens. which shouldn't surprise anyone from the man who released this picture and this one. Yep, think about that one. Look at it. Look at it. This is a man who is desperate for your attention. Well, we've been looking. You got our attention. Christensen was the special guest in 2016 for the launch of David Van Gieren's anti-same-sex marriage book, Stealing from a Child, The Injustice of Marriage Equality. Why would he be invited to such an event? Well, he had some strong words to say about the Safe Schools initiative.
The parents would probably call the police because it would sound a lot like grooming work that a sexual predator might undertake.
But we secretly suspect he just wanted to say these naughty things at work.
Penis and vagina sex is not the only sex, and certainly not the ultimate sex. Sadomasochistic, 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 and sadomasochism.
Among the issues that make him so divisive are his calls for the return of the death penalty for drug dealers and terrorists, starting his own website war on radical Islam, which to this day has nothing on it, and was made using a Wix address despite pulling down government money, and didn't even offer to pay any writers who were interested in helping him. Taking a swipe at the hashtag I'll Ride With You campaign by sharing stories from Breitbart, and called for a ban on Muslim immigration from radicalised countries. But despite attacking Islamic countries, Christensen still took a trip to the Muslim majority country Malaysia to get his lap band surgery. And finally, his position on man-made climate change is as follows. A, it isn't really happening except in the beliefs of the majority of climate scientists. And B, even if it is happening, it won't be as catastrophic as predicted by the elite of the world, and at worst, will involve temperature increases of only 2 or 3 degrees and the loss of some species, but that's always been happening anyway. Though if you were to ask the man, of himself, Trump and Pauline Hanson, he'd say, all we're doing is listening to people, then repeating what they tell us they want. He's trying to palm this off onto you, the viewer. Well, Christensen, you wanted our attention, now you have it. Your next move would want to be a lot better than your last. Welcome back to The Leak. Well, the federal Liberal executive voted to privatise the ABC, and we have 360-degree Fahrenheit coverage with The Leak's news team. Eve Ellenbogen, you were at the meeting where this vote took place, and you followed the Liberals back to their hotel. What's going on?
Oh my God, Pat, it's like my moon cup in here, just blood and guts everywhere. It's amazing.
Sorry, did you just say blood?
Yeah, when I got here, there were 3 guys with bags on their heads tied to chairs. I don't even know what they did, but since Me Too, I've had a lot of rage toward phallic objects.
Well, look after yourself out there, Eve.
How do you like that, baby?
And joining us with a Leak exclusive now is resident news goth, Rose Bishop. Rose, what have you got for us?
Pat, I've been handed a document containing a further list of proposals for the ABC that were withdrawn last minute, including Andrew Bolt doing live audio commentary over the sound of Q&A to correct left-wing bias as it happens, replacing Play School with the ghost of Sir Robert Menzies reading excerpts of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and renaming the ABC the Gay BC.
And Rose, were those proposals withdrawn because they were considered too extreme?
No, the proposals were well supported, but the cocktail napkin they were written on got used to mop up Barnaby Joyce's interview Fear Sweats too many times and disintegrated.
Thank you, Rose. Well, with a look at how advertisers would see a privatised ABC, we've got Matt Young joining us from the Leaks News Jacuzzi. Matt?
Yeah, hey Pat, the ABC has heaps of potential, but at the moment it's kind of a fixer-upper. Like, right now it's like a may-BC when it could so easily be a slay-BC.
What does that actually mean though, Matt, slay-BC?
It means synergies, Pat, synergies. I'm thinking like a Four Corners / Women's Weekly crossover to investigate Samantha Armitage's moustache. Like a Philip Adams brought to you by Philip Morris.
Yeah, Matt, I've told you before, Matt, stay away from advertising executives, they're dangerous.
But the synergies, Pat.
No, thanks, Matt. And while the organisational wing of the Liberal Party has voted to privatise the ABC, Liberal politicians are less keen. Aurelia St Clair, you've spoken to Liberals. What are their views?
Let's be clear. Everyone I spoke to agreed the ABC was, to quote one MP, full of commie bastards. But rather than sell the ABC, their preferred strategy is to keep control of the ABC so that they can gradually cut its funding to the point where it no longer exists. As one MP told me, if I was in a room with Hitler, Trump and Peppa Pig, and I had a gun with only 2 bullets, I would shoot Peppa Pig twice.
Chilling stuff. Well, that is it from us tonight. My huge thanks to Rose Bishop, Eve Ellenbogen, Aurelia St Clair, and Matt Young, and all the crew. I'm Pat McCaffrey. That was The Leak. Good night.